There you go. That's fun. Welcome to church tonight. Thank you. Hopefully you'll feel that way when I get done. You know, the church has been talking about faith on Sunday mornings. We talked about faith last week. And so tonight, we're going to talk about faith and doubt. Okay? It's this awkward passage in James chapter 1. If any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. But when he asks, he must believe and not doubt, because he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not think they will receive anything from the Lord. Ouch. I say ouch because, you know, faith is defined as unquestioning belief. Okay? Complete trust and confidence. Loyalty. Does that sound like your relationship with the Lord? Hopefully, that's the norm. But I notice that I find myself in conversations with people who used to be Christians. Okay? But they don't follow the Lord anymore. And it's not so much that they left the belief system as much as they just didn't find it helpful. I'll never forget this one woman came to church and she accepted Jesus and she was joining the church and she said, I hope this works. And I just cringed because it's just not that fix. It is. It can fix your life. But the struggle that was before her, I knew it was going to be overwhelming, and it didn't surprise me when she drifted away. I remember doing a funeral for a friend, and he said, Pastor, actually I was at a friend's funeral, and one of his friends said, Pastor, I have doubts about heaven. And I said, well, you should, because of the way you live, you know. Friend of mine, right? And really, you know, he was a Christian. He wasn't an atheist. Okay? And he was struggling with the primary concept of Christianity, heaven. We're at a funeral. We're talking about it. We're thinking about it. We're worrying about it. And he's confessing, I'm not sure about it. And maybe you know that uncomfortable feeling of doubt. You know, somebody comes along and lays out a pretty good argument against your faith, or you're in a philosophy class at college, or worse, you have a family tragedy occur. And we have a hard time reconciling a good God with the bad stuff that happens. Again, today, 2 times, I got a little choked up looking at the news about these little children getting killed in different events. And for a lot of people, you know, it causes them to question their faith. You know, we were counting on God to make a difference. It was Dostoevsky who wrote, the death of a single infant calls into question the existence of God. And when somebody loses a child, you know, why did God allow this? And I find it amusing that people who don't go to church and don't call themselves Christians get mad at God when something goes wrong. Like, why did God allow this? Well, you don't believe in him anyways. What are you attacking him for, right? What's the problem? Eli Wiesel, incredible guy, went through the concentration camp experience and really helped everybody process it after the fact. You know, he mentioned on his first night at one of the concentration camps that there was a wagon full of babies being tossed into a fire. And you know, it's interesting to read his stuff because I don't think he ever really made peace and understood God the way we can, the way he's made himself available. I had a janitor. He was recon for, I think it was Patton, and he opened up one of the concentration camp gates. Okay, he's like the first one in, and man, he always argued with me about God. And he came to church every Sunday, stuck with me for 9 years, but I could never convince him because of what he experienced. And of course, you have people who would like to believe, but they prayed and it didn't happen. And this is where it starts to get personal for us, right? We wanted somebody to get healed. It didn't happen. We wish this bad thing wouldn't occur all the time, and it continues to happen. And our experience means I don't know if I believe. Why isn't God doing what I want him to do? Of course, you got people who don't want to believe. We got this whole genre of books against the existence of God that are real popular right now. They argue a little critical thinking would reveal the nonsense of believing in God. And I listen to their arguments and I see key holes in what they have to say. Easy responses. And yet I don't know if nobody's gotten to them, or they won't allow somebody to speak to them, or they haven't done their homework. But somewhere along the line, we got these people arguing against God, and their arguments are not good. Okay? And here's the thing. Smart people ridicule the faith. Intellectuals are ripping into our Christianity. The government, I don't know if you've noticed, but Christianity is one of the agendas that we keep minimizing. They're going after the pastor's tax breaks right now. Okay? So I'm really against this whole thing. And my wife says, what are we going to do? And I said, I don't know. I guess we'll have to live like everybody else. And what if all of a sudden it's against the law to be a pastor? What are we going to do? What if they censure what you have to say? What are we going to do? Well, I just plan on dying then. Plan on getting thrown in jail. I mean, to live is Christ and to die is gain. And have you ever noticed the history of Christianity? When people get persecuted, it spreads. The smartest thing you can do if you're a communist regime is leave Christians alone. But they don't. They attack them. And then Christians spread it because it's a supernatural fire. And I don't want to insinuate that the God question is a simple thing to answer. Because I think all of us in our lives, we have a little faith and a little doubt. Okay? The both groups, the believers and the atheists, they're in pursuit of this question: are you real, God? And haven't you been there? Don't you know that question? Martin Luther, the champion of justification by faith, he was visited by a woman troubled with doubt. And Luther asked her, when you recite the creeds, do you believe them? And she said, most certainly. Then he said, go in peace. You believe better than I do. And most of us have been wounded by life. And maybe the best faith is one that's had to be worked out on the anvil of life's trials, where you've dealt with difficult situations and you stayed with God and received his answers. And some of us, we haven't received the answers yet, but you know what? Like the Hillsong band members said, a lot of this doesn't make sense, but it makes more sense with Jesus. Okay? And I know when I get confused, I just pray like the guy in Mark 9, I do believe. Help my unbelief. In other words, I want you to stay with God in the tension of life. That's where so many people leave his presence, who close his book, who don't talk to him anymore, and they miss out on what's available, what's coming. See, we got it wrong. We think that God exists to serve us. And if you realize he's God and we exist to serve him, what's going to take place? The right orientation to him is going to bring about the power that he has for us. And I think where we make a lot of mistakes, I talked about this on Sunday, is we assume that more information is going to build up our faith. But doubt's not really a problem of the intellect, okay? No, it's a problem of the will. It's a problem of the heart. Choosing not to believe, it frees us up from any external authority over our lives, okay? If I don't believe, then I get to do whatever I want. And we find some reason not to believe, and we excuse ourselves from the spiritual journey. G.K. Chesterton, he was asked what he bases his faith on, and he says, it's the accumulation of small but unanimous facts. Isn't that cool? A scrappy collection of evidence as we go through life. And every now and then I get into a conversation with somebody, and we'll start comparing supernatural events. We'll start talking about when prayers were answered. We'll start discussing those little moments where the little miracles. I had somebody come into my office yesterday. 50 minutes she talked about God doing supernatural stuff in her life. You know? It was kind of an inconvenience. I was busy, right? Hey, can you talk to so-and-so? Oh, okay. Man, I didn't want her to leave because she was just downloading so much Christianity. Okay? And she struggles. She doubts. She's got issues that she wants God to answer. But just to see all that God's already doing in her life, that's the way we live. That's what it's about. And a lot of times we think, well, if only I could have one big miracle, I'd be good. Okay? And yes, that works. I mean, I remember I've had people take away my Christianity, except they couldn't take away that one time. Okay? And so I had to rebuild my Christianity off of that one time. Yeah. And you know what happened? That one time came out of hours of prayer. I put the time in to seek the Lord, and I got something supernaturally given to me that became an anchor to get me through college philosophy classes. All right? So I'm just going to tell you how to do it. The Pharisees, they saw Jesus raise somebody from the dead. And what was their response? We've got to kill him. Okay? The disciples, they see Jesus after he rose from the dead. What do they say? What does it say? Many of them still doubted. So I don't know that going searching for miracles is really going to make it happen, okay? And, you know, I've seen lots of miracles, and I can still struggle with stuff. I thought it was interesting in Mark chapter 5. I was reading in my devotions this weekend, and it says that Jesus was speaking great wisdom and doing many miracles. And the town people said, isn't this Jesus the carpenter? Don't we know his mother? And isn't he the brother of these guys and has sisters? And it says, and they took offense at him. They took offense at this supernatural wisdom and supernatural miracles. Okay? How can you take offense? Well, I got friends, okay? They're always hitting me up with arguments about the Lord, and I do my homework and I answer. And they come up with a fresh argument, and I do my homework and I answer them. And I'm some of these guys, I'm in 35 years argument back and forth. Some of these guys, okay? 35 years. And one guy, I got to see him this summer, and I really let him have it. You know, I hadn't seen him for decades. I let him have it. You know, well, I just think getting up every day is like, you know, a gift from God. Dude, everybody gets up every day, you know? Come on, put a little teeth to your philosophy in life. Because the sun rises, you think that's a big deal? Okay? You know, get real. And I remember being at dinner with a close friend who starts to rip into Christianity and destroying every argument that I was tossing out, and starts ripping into I had my wife with me, okay? And just so you know, if you ever want to play Bible trivia or get into conversation about Christianity, have her with you. And she goes, you know, your arguments, they're not going to change anything that I've already experienced. Okay? And that's what I want you to have, the experience of faith. Because when you put it into your head, it's not going to make sense. When you put it into your heart and into your life, all of a sudden it's called the living Word. It's the living God. It's the living Spirit. Okay? That's what we've been given. It's kind of interesting. In Mark chapter 5 again, this woman has a 12-year hemorrhage. And she went to the doctor. She didn't get better. She only got worse. And she thinks, if I can just touch the fringe of his garment. Okay? And so she works her way into the crowd and she touches the fringe. And it says that power was released. Now Jesus is walking this way. He's got a crowd all about him. He's probably in an argument with the Pharisees. They shouldn't be healing and stuff like that. And somebody touches the fringe of his garment. And he stops, turns around. Who touched me? And the disciples give it to him, What do you mean, who touched you? And don't you see you're surrounded by a crowd? The disciples, they have no idea they're actually talking to God, kind of insulting them there. He goes, no, somebody touched me. And that woman was me. And he forces a relationship with her. She was hoping to get touched, disappear. Not a big deal. And there's a lot going on here. She had the faith to step forward. She reached out and touched him. She broke rules by being an unclean person in public. Okay? And God, I want you to hear me, He's never going to allow the touch of faith to go unnoticed. Okay? Never going to allow the touch of faith to get past Him. Because when you reach out in faith and touch Him, He's going to stop and He's going to want to have a conversation. He's going to want to bless you with faith. He's going to affirm your relationship with Him. He's going to enter into a conversation that never stops. He becomes your God forever. And what I really want to do is contrast these two groups of people. Some of these guys, they knew Jesus. Don't we know His brothers? Didn't we buy stuff at His carpenter shop? His Mary's his mother. Okay? See, they thought they knew Him, but they don't understand Him. And what happens? They reject Him. Now the woman, what happens? She reaches out in faith, and Jesus establishes a relationship. The rejectors, they miss out on God. He establishes a relationship with her because she had faith. And this is the problem with faith. It's not something you can see. You can't do a math equation and say, okay, this is how it works. God says to Abraham, go to a place I'm going to show you. Well, we want a little bit more. Tell me more about the plan. But the whole part about God is the journey. And actually, friends, we get to know the end of the plan. We know where we're going. But in the meantime, and just in case you don't know, He's prepared a place for you. But in case, we don't know what to do. Well, I want the facts. I need to know the plan. I'd like to see, I need some assurances here, God. And the assurance He gives is, I'm going to be with you. That's His assurance. I'm going to be with you.
Thank you.
This is huge. Do you realize that He's with you every day? Somebody asked me, how many times do you talk to God every day? And I said, well, I've talked to Him 3 times in the midst of our conversation here right now. Okay? Now, I realized I might have made it seem like I wasn't paying attention, okay, to the conversation. But it's more like I need a little extra help. When I'm in a counseling conversation, I don't just rely on, hey, let me give you my thoughts. I cheat, and I get some eternal supernatural help. Lord, how can I answer correctly? How can I guide this child of yours? I don't want them to be limited to what I have to think. Would you break through and speak to your person here? And so this faith thing, it entails us not exactly knowing. And I want you to hear me. The touch touching the fringe of Jesus' cloak was enough for the crisis. He says, draw near to me and I will draw near to you. I remember one time I was in a church in England, and I hadn't been talking to the Lord, and I just was in one of those seasons where I had drifted. And so I found myself in a church, and I go, wow, Lord, I miss you so much. And all of a sudden I just got flooded with the Holy Spirit. I mean, I was having a supernatural, physical response to God. Because, I really did. I miss you. Right there. You draw near to me, draws near to you. It can be just like that. And you might say, well, I didn't get one of those. Well, that's probably because you didn't need one of those. Okay? I'm a little more needy than you are. But here's how it works. Sometimes it's as you go forth. Remember the 10 lepers? It's as they went forth. They were given instructions. All you 10 lepers, go show yourself to the priests. Well, why? What do I got to show? It's as they went forth. People sitting at the Red Sea. Why are you standing here? Go forward. It's as they go forward. The sea parts. So when you get a word from God, faith is stepping forward knowing that he's going to do something. This is huge. It's stepping forward despite what you see, despite the outcome. Okay? It's called stepping out in faith. Okay? Because Jesus is going to meet us. And I'm telling you this, he's going to bless us, but he's not going to be satisfied just to leave us where we are. Like the woman, she touches his cloak. That's not enough. I want more of us. And he wants more from you. Now here's the thing. And here's where it's a problem. See, right now, naturalism kind of dominates the university setting. That humans are just a collection of atoms. And we like this thought. You know why? Because then we're not held accountable. I can do whatever I want, no accountability. This is what the Nobel laureate Czesław Misley says in a book, The Discreet Charm of Nihilism. The true opium of the people is the belief of nothingness after death. A huge solace for thinking that we're not going to be judged for our betrayals, our greed, our cowardice, our murders. It's hard to imagine that just because religion is done away with, the greedy people are going to become generous. Angry people are going to become merciful. Do you ever hear somebody say, one day I realized there was no God, there was no life after death, and I knew that my existence had meaning, and it changed me. I used to be addicted to alcohol, but now, by the law of natural selection, I'm set free. I used to be greedy, but the story of the Big Bang has made me generous. I used to be afraid, but now random chance has given me peace. Okay? That just doesn't happen. It's the other way around. Okay? And let's take this a little bit deeper. And let's get personal for a moment. Two people affirm the Apostles' Creed. One person's humble, loving, truthful, bold, full of life and good-hearted. People want to be around her. Another person affirms the same Apostles' Creed, but is selfish, angry, judgmental, and arrogant. Nobody wants to be around him. Now, do these two people really have the same faith? Okay? If they believe the same thing, why are they so different? When you were going to be nominated to be a saint, you know what the medieval church would do? They would hire a lawyer for the purpose of making a case against you. It's called the devil's advocate. His purpose was to ask hard questions to make sure that Christianity was actually worthy of sainthood. Kind of makes you nervous. What if somebody hired a lawyer to find out if you were really a Christian? And they're going to examine all of your life, and they're going to look at all of your thoughts. They're going to see how you spend your money and arrange your calendar. And would you pass the test? Now, I know all of you would. Okay. A couple people in the band I'm worried about. Okay. It's frightening, though, isn't it? Because you and I know the private thoughts, the personal selfish motivations, the weaknesses that we try to hide. We know the damage that we've done to other people. And other people, no one gets to see that except for this one guy, God. And here's the amazing thing about God. He knows all that about you, and he's forgiven it. He's wiped it away. He said, I knew sin was going to do that to you. I've forgiven it. I'm going to give you my spirit, so you will now think my thoughts if you give the Spirit access to your thoughts. I'm going to give you a new orientation to life instead of worrying about you. Let me take care of you. You worry about me. Amen. Okay? He changes you that way. And if you want to know if faith is really making a difference in your life, just check out how you live. You know, and this is the truth. On the internet, there's this reformed group of Christians. And I've never seen bigger finger wavers in my life. I'm telling you for sure they think I'm going to hell. Okay? They do. And then they release the hounds on my Facebook page. And I feel and receive all the hatred and the condemnation and the judgment. And then I run into some other people on the Facebook. And they don't have their theology down. They couldn't quote a Bible verse straight if their life... They probably couldn't say Jesus wept without messing up that Bible verse, you know? And they're the kindest, most generous, most thoughtful people. And if I ask them about Jesus, they'll say, oh yeah, I talk to him every day, you know. You try to talk about theology with them, they couldn't do it. And so which one are you? Now, ideally, we're going to be one who knows our theology and knows that the purpose of our belief system is to release the grace of Jesus Christ. How many of us, we're all upset about the gay agenda, okay? The Bible speaks against it. And yeah, the Bible does speak against it, and it is classified as a sin, and it's something that we all have to deal with. But do we denounce these people, or do we bring the love of Jesus Christ to these people? That's the difference. That's where... Remember that moment when the disciples encounter the Samaritans, and the Samaritan says, you guys can't come here, and they say, shall we bring down fire from heaven on them? And Jesus says, you do not know what spirit you are of. We did not come to destroy lives. Okay? We didn't come to destroy lives, but to save lives. So anytime you feel like destroying somebody with the Bible verse, or with your theology, or with your attitude, grab a hold of it and go, wait a minute. It's supposed to be extending love and grace and compassion. Well, it is the truth. Let me close up with this cool story. I've told it before, and I just love to tell it again. Albert Camus, he was that existential thinker that we all had to read all of his books. And, he went through the Nazi regime where everybody got killed in France and everybody around them. And, 55 million lives were killed because of Hitler. And, the meaning of life, the foundation of morality, the problem of suffering and evil. That's what he talked about. One of his books is, that my life, I realize that I'm alive and it makes me sick. Okay? It's a real fun read. And his problem was, how can there be a God who's good and all-powerful and allow these events to happen? Surely there's no God. So, great atheist. But here's the thing about this atheist. He doesn't just sit back and hate life. No, he shows compassion and he tries to encourage other people. And he helps the homeless. Okay? So he's trying to figure it out, but he's a good-hearted person. So he runs into a Methodist minister who always visits Paris. And the Methodist minister, everybody knows this guy. He's famous. And when this philosopher starts to release all of his negativity, the Methodist minister goes, yeah, I feel the same way. I can't figure this world out. He commiserates with the guy. He expresses his own inability to understand this world and our existence. And then out of those conversations, the minister transferred Jesus Christ to him. And so suddenly Camus starts reading the Bible. And at one of their last meetings, he asked the Methodist minister, hey, do you perform baptisms? And so the man explained what baptism was all about, being born again and a new process, a spiritual growth. You've been forgiven, all your sins forgiven. And Camus says, I want this. And he goes, well, next time I see you. Camus gets hit by a car, killed. And two things you learn there. If somebody wants to get baptized, baptize them. Okay? And the second thing you learn, if somebody wants to accept Jesus, take care of business. Okay? I'm sure Camus got saved. He's reading the scriptures. He heard about Jesus. He affirmed he wants his forgiveness. But here's the angle that I want to come to. How would you have treated the world's leading atheists? Okay? Would you have attacked his beliefs? Because they are diametrically opposed to everything we believe. Would you have argued with him? Or would you have taken the time to love him and listen to him and care for him and connect to what he was saying and share your own stories about, yeah, life sure can be frustrating. Here's what I learned. Here's what I figured out. Because I don't know about you, but I get into lots of situations where it becomes combative pretty quickly. It gets argumentatively really fast. And I don't think it's me. Okay? But people are passionate about their anger of pain and suffering in the world. And why did God allow this? Where was God? And they get all upset. And in Jude, verse, there's only one chapter, verse 22, it says, be merciful to those who doubt. And do you ever doubt? Be merciful to yourself. Aren't we so hard on ourselves? I can't believe you call yourself a Christian and you got this doubt. Just welcome to the world of sin and grace. Okay? I'll never forget at the UCLA Medical Center, I had this experience, and I'll close up here. I had a General Patton soldier, I had a German soldier, and I had a concentration camp survivor, all in the same rotation. So, and I'm the kind of guy, I'd go visit my people every day. So I got to know these guys, pretty deeply. And I asked the one concentration camp survivor, where was God? And he got so mad. There was no God. He screamed it out. I thought the nurses were going to come running in, So I just sat there in silence, and he sat there in silence, and then he started talking. But then I realized, and he explained how he found his way back to God. And I can only tell you this. You might be going through something that's overwhelming and you're angry with God that he's allowing it. I don't deserve this, which I don't think any of us should ever say. You get way more than you deserve. But here's the thing. What's a better option? A proven way of love and life through Jesus Christ, or a life of doubt and nothingness? Because right now, do you realize people are choosing a life of doubt and nothingness when they reject Christianity? And I guess, are they seeing any reason in your life to choose differently? Because a life lived close to God is going to be more satisfying. Amen. Are you finding that satisfaction? And if you're not, I'm thinking it's because you're not stepping forward in faith. And this brings us to the table. Jesus knew we were going to blow it. If it's any consolation, Moses in the tent with God every day, as speaking to God face to face as a man speaks to another. Have grace for him? Yes. Aaron makes the golden calf. Does God nail him with a lightning bolt or put him in charge of the distribution of the forgiveness of sins for the people? He's got you covered. So whatever you're struggling with against yourself, whatever you're struggling with that's happening to you, whatever you're struggling with, why is the world this way? Jesus has got the answer. And that's what this communion table is all about. It's the body and blood of Jesus. His body broken for you, his blood shed for you, so that you now have access to God in a real way that can never be broken. You belong to God, period. Engage him.